My Stirling Single, Part 54, Painting the Tender Buffer Beam. This is more difficult than it looks, as the paint has to be applied in a series of thin coats so as not to paint out the detail of the small bolt heads and to avoid runs or sags. After the first coat of the red paint, it does not look very good. I'm painting it with this stuff. It's self-etch grey primer. It's a paint with an acid in, and it's really good at sticking to steel. As I showed in the previous episode, I sprayed some from an aerosol can into an aerosol can cap. And after leaving the paint in the cap, the solvent started to evaporate and it became the correct consistency for brush painting. Whenever I paint parts that have a lot of surface detail, like these bolt heads, it always takes me to a particular time in my childhood when I built a small plastic kit of the battleship Bismarck. But I didn't have any paint, so I looked in the cellar to see if I could find some in the old tins that were down there. I found what I thought would be suitable paint to paint the Bismarck with. It was purple. That's the only colour paint I could find, so off I went, painting the Bismarck with this purple paint. And to be honest, even I thought it looked really dreadful, but after a while I sort of got used to it, a purple plastic kit of a Bismarck battleship. That is, until shortly afterwards my uncle called in. Now my uncle was a very fastidious sort of a man. He used to repair watches, which is something I've never been good at, and he also used to build models like I do. My uncle did not put his head in his hands and leave the room. At the time I was only about 8 years old, but I remember his words very well. He said, "You've painted out all the detail." He said, "When you paint models, don't over-apply the paint, because the paint is very thick. It will fill in the gaps between the parts and make the model look bland." That was 64 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I wasn't hurt or offended, but I did take the point. He never mentioned the colour though. In this video, I'm painting most of the time, and as you can see, I'm taking great pains not to over-apply the paint. I'm sort of painting it on and painting it off, which is okay with etching primer, because you only need a thin coat for it to work. Applying the paint very sparingly is not too good for the top coat. In fact, at the end of this video, you will see my attempts when I paint the first coat of buffer beam red onto this buffer beam. I will warn you in advance that it really doesn't look very good at all, very patchy, but after possibly another 2 coats, it should look solid, and I will not have painted out any of the detail of any of the bolt heads. You may be wondering why I didn't spray this part with the etching primer. To do that successfully, I would have to sit the engine with the buffers uppermost, so I had a level surface, otherwise I would get runs or sags, not to mention the time and effort required to mask up the rest of the tender. In this video I am breaking a personal rule, because I'm going over the paintwork more than once. I'm not scrubbing the paint like some people do, and just like the Bismarck episode when I was a child, I'm making sure that I do not paint out any of the detail of the bolt heads on the buffer beam. What I'm aiming to achieve is to get a nice even layer of paint, because sanding off any runs would be difficult on this buffer beam. 24 hours later, it's time for the first of the top coats. I'm carefully applying some masking tape on the underside of the brass part of the tender. For some reason, I forgot to do this in the previous episode. Before I did this though, I wiped off any etch primer that had inadvertently painted on the underside of the brass part. I'm pressing the masking tape firmly into place using a screwdriver because my fingernails are not long enough. I composed and recorded a piece of music to accompany the next part of the video. I played this tune in real time using my Yamaha Genos keyboard. And the tune is called, surprisingly enough, Applying the First Coat of Red Paint to the Buffer Beam. The first coat is now complete. It doesn't look very good, but it should be fine after another couple of coats. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.